Hello, everyone, and welcome to Hypothetically Speaking, the show where we talk about anything unexplained, unsolved, and unnatural. I'm Bree,
I'm Morgan.
And I'm Allison.
and this episode we are all talking about lost heads, or lost minds of a certain variety. Um, for a short part of the show, each of us will bring a topic that, in a way, relates to this theme. Um, So mine will go, and then we will have Allison's, and then we will have Morgan's. I won't spoil what your guys's are, but my topic is on specifically the skull of, but also generally a history of Saint Valentine of Rome, which doesn't feel like a very October topic, but in this idea I had about like skulls and like famous skulls and heads. This one was one that I definitely wanted to talk about because I've always found the um reliquary of the skull in Rome very interesting. Like I just think aesthetically it's so I don't know. For one,
It's
I
very,
didn't know for a very long time that saints' bones are kept and distributed throughout churches within Catholicism.
Yeah.
So if you did not know, that is something that they do. Um, and so he had his bones obviously scattered about, um, and those his skull resides in that church. At least we think it does. More on
Wait,
that
which
later.
church is this?
This is the Santa Maria Church in Cosmedin, Rome,
Oh, okay.
and it's the one that where the skull has Saint Valentine or S Valentin M across the forehead, which translates to Saint Valentine, martyr, patron saint of lovers. And he has like a flower crown around his skull.
That's fascinating. I have seen some saint bones when I went to Portugal. We did go to some churches and they had some bones in them.
Hmm.
But they weren't like they did not have engravings
Yeah,
that I saw
it's
anyways.
like almost like a sticker and then or like a stencil
Okay.
or something on his forehead. So they didn't carve it into him, but
Okay.
it's like a little it almost looks like a label. Like but like
like
a
they
handwritten
embossed it or
label.
something.
Like they made
Yeah.
us label.
These
Like your
label
jar
makers
of
it that
pasta.
Uh,
that is
like is, is it like the
unfortunate.
like is it like the Volant champagne for breakfast sticker that's on front of the show Miles' laptop type of label?
Um, I'd say more like old style label, like when people make the like embossed labels.
Oh,
Oh, okay.
That's kind of what it reminds me of, but obviously done by hand. Uh, but yeah,
mhm.
so I've always just found that image and that because I've obviously never seen it in person, but I see the image pop up, and a lot of people do it for like portrait study, that I like follow for art. And I don't know, I've just always found it
Oh.
such to be such a fascinating and kind of morbid but beautiful sight. So I really wanted to know a little bit more about him, and boy, did I learn. Uh, we discussed saints pretty at length last year where we talked over uh saints and like what they were patron saint of, as well as we talked about Saint Nicholas
There are
on the
some weird
show.
ones, weird saints out there.
There is a
Yeah.
lot of weird saints, and a lot of saints have many things they are patron of besides the one
Yeah.
that they are most well known for. Obviously, Saint Valentine of Rome is the patron saint of lovers. He is also the patron saint of engaged couples, people with epilepsy,
Oh.
beekeeping, young people, and the plague, as in like ward against the plague, not like yay the plague.
I find
Um,
beekeeping to be an odd mix with the rest of that.
the thought is that he either, I believe it was he kept bees and had a fondness for them, as well as an association between sweetness and
Like honey and
and
okay.
love.
It is used in quite a few like literary allusions and allegories and things for love, so
Mhm.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's also fun that we're all engaged to other people, not each other, but you
Sure.
know.
uh,
Yes, he is our saint technically. A lot of people will go to some of the churches and either do their vow renewals, get their engagement rings blessed, things like that. Which I think is really fun. I kind of want to go to one of the churches when Brayden and I go to Europe for our honeymoon, just because I think it would be cool and fun.
Yeah, same.
Um, but yes, so he is, I would say Saint Valentine. You could say he's of beekeeping age. Or was, at least at one point. But most of these have like I think a fairly straightforward reason. The epilepsy and plague were because of people going to him for healing, especially people with epilepsy seeking him out. The first sources I saw that I wouldn't necessarily recommend was like, I can't find any discernible reason for this. It took me a Google search to find some reasons for these, notably. But
Oh.
to keep moving forward, there were multiple Saint Valentines in the third century, which is when he's said to have lived. Two in Europe, around Rome and Italy, and one in North Africa. There were also several others. There's 10 Saint Valentines within like the Roman canon.
okay,
Um,
a lot.
some being there's a whole bunch, and I won't go over all of them. But specifically, there is three that are believed to make up the main story of Saint Valentine. I learned a new word, hagiography, which is the like the life of a saint, basically, the story of a life of a saint. So the story goes as follows that Saint Valentine is most well known for marrying Christians, and basically evangelizing in the name of Christ. This was not well received when he was alive. It was not legal. And so he was either a priest of Rome or a bishop of Terni, which is in Italy. Um, and so upon being caught for these illegal acts, it was also thought he might have been uh, marrying people so that the husbands could essentially avoid the draft or being conscripted. That would be the more accurate term at the time. I
Oh.
don't know if that was because of some religious aversion to war or because it was Rome's war or something. I don't know exactly why, but again, not very well received. So he was under house arrest for these, but converted his judge after he'd been discussing with him. And so his judge put forth a test, brought him his blind daughter, and asked him to heal her, which he did and restored her sight. And so the judge and his family were all baptized and converted. And Saint Valentine is said to have converted 50 people before he was martyred,
Yeah,
which is a sizable amount.
yeah.
So he then ran into some trouble with the Emperor Claudius Gothicus, which I know is like a not the most wild name ever, but it gave me a little bit of a laugh. Also more commonly known as Claudius II. The emperor did have a liking for Valentine until he tried to convince him of Christianity, which angered him. He commanded the priest to renounce his faith or be executed. Um, and that was to be beaten and then beheaded. And Valentine accepted this fate rather than not uh being
Renouncing God.
yeah, renouncing his
Okay,
faith. Um,
That is a lot of commitment. Like a
yeah,
lot, a lot.
true. That's why he's a saint and a
Yeah.
yeah.
martyr.
Yeah.
He
Um,
really committed.
he really committed. A later embellishment that was added to the story is that before he was executed, he wrote a letter to the young girl he healed before this, and it was signed Your Valentine or From Your Valentine, which is thought to
Oh,
have
inspired the Valentine's Day cards.
yes.
Oh,
Which Valentine's Day cards became more common around I believe it was the 18th century, so the
okay.
1700s.
Honestly,
Um,
earlier than I anticipated.
yeah, me
Yeah.
too when I was looking this up.
It kind
Uh,
of is it
no,
kind of gives a much darker turn on like giving everybody in your class Valentine's Day cards as like in grade school.
yeah.
Um,
I mean, the holiday was originally a feast day for him, but then it's also retroactively like it has by like the Catholics been turned into like a celebration of love. So it's not like you're completely like besmirching it if you care about such things.
It's fascinating though that this turned into like a pretty heavily observed holiday, at least like in the United States. I
Yeah.
don't know for sure for the rest of the world, but like it is of the list of holidays observed in the United States, it's a very common, well known, like it's not anything obscure, which I find fascinating.
yeah. Well, I guess it's been pretty
Secular.
secularized.
Yeah.
Yes, same with St. Patrick's Day,
Yeah.
obviously.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a very old holiday too. It's been around since about the 5th century.
Wow.
Dang.
Um, when it was a we do know that at the very least that Saint Valentine did exist and was martyred because of the record we have of when he was canonized, when his feast day was established, which is the day of his death that we
Hmm.
know of, February 14th. Crazily enough, the reason that these three St. Valentines had their stories kind of merged is because they all died on a February 14th between 269 and 274-ish.
That's wild.
That's a bad day to be a saint.
Yeah.
Oh my
So
gosh.
the
That's
official
so crazy.
it really is. The official record of the death is February 14th, 269. Nice. Uh, uh, interestingly enough, like saints' lives are already a very convoluted and complicated subject because many of them lived so long ago. But in 1969, the Roman Catholic Church actually um I can't remember exactly how they did it, but they sort of demoted Saint Valentine. Like his day is still celebrated, but he's out of the martyrology or whatever, which is like the list of Catholic martyrs, because so
Interesting.
little is known about him.
Okay, like
Oh, sure.
that is sort of valid, but I will also say to like refuse to renounce your faith and then be tortured and killed, I would feel a little irritated that they decided that I no longer deserve to be mentioned in this. I'm just saying I would be a little bitter about that.
And on the
Yeah.
1200th year of his death.
Yeah.
Like, that's just rude. Like you couldn't have waited.
He couldn't, yeah, it really is just insult to injury. Um, it is so
I
crazy that th three people, all saints, all named Valentine, were all executed, murdered on a February 14th.
It's it is odd for sure. That
yeah.
is I mean, there's just so many days in the year. The statistical likelihood of that, given how many saints there are and how many saints there are
And
with the same name and the number of days in the year, like, I don't want to do the math for it, but it's got to be bonkers.
Yeah.
yeah.
And it was a very popular name in that time period, either and it would be the Romanized,
Oh,
it's Valentin and Valentina.
yeah.
Um
Mm,
and like I said, there are several others who were alive and then martyred at some point within the third, fourth, or fifth centuries, including
mm,
one Valentina who was a saint and virgin, which I mentioned because it's mentioned because, religion. Uh, who I would be interested to know more about if there's any other record of her. But I do know that she was killed in Palestine. I don't know anything else about her though.
Hmm.
Around the fifth century, I want to say, is when that happened. Um, and then so then we get into the body, which is where it gets extra complicated because, again, bones be scattered, and the Victorians extra messed this up for us.
Yeah, they had
classic
some weird stuff going
Victorians.
on with bones back in the day. Honestly,
That
the Victorians had some weird stuff going on with corpses as a whole, really.
So true. So weird.
that has been its own topic, and it could totally be its own
Yeah.
topic again because we could really get into how weird it was.
Let's just
Uh,
say Gothic literature generally is considered to start in like the Victorian era, and there's a reason for that.
there's a very good reason for that.
Yeah.
Um, so what we have for sure of him is two skulls, several skeletons, various skeletal remains within various reliquaries, and a whole list of churches in various different places that are said to hold parts of his body. Funnily enough, there's no real like animosity or competition between the churches that claim to have the bodies of the same saint in them. Like, not even just like we have the finger and you have the toe. Like, we both have the skull of this guy. Um,
Yeah. They're just like, ah, it's God stuff, That
yeah.
God works in
Who
mysterious
you
ways.
choose to believe.
Apparently, they could, saints supposedly could multiply their bones in death to make it so that multiple places can have their bodies.
I am not Catholic, so I don't feel qualified to speak on this. However, what?
I wish I knew. Um, Again, that's something I read as sort of an aside on one source, so I don't want to completely
Yeah,
like state that as
say that
fact.
that's something. Yeah,
But I would
that's
say if it is true, that doesn't really surprise me. It seems like an explanation that would be given.
Yeah, I
But
mean, I think there's a lot of sort of mystical qualities given to like saints' bones anyways. So
that's
that I
fair.
mean that
That
was part of like Saint Nicholas too, was that his bones I think it like produced like myrrh or something like that.
yeah,
And it was like a
I remember that.
healing myrrh. So yeah, there's definitely room for some weird bone stuff. Uh in the Catholic Church.
Weird bone stuff is the topic of my favorite book. Uh,
Uh,
um, very inspired, by the way, by the ways that Catholicism is interesting about bones.
yeah.
Yeah, so I'm gonna run down the list. I have as many of the churches written down by name as I could find, and some just have them within various cities. This is a whole list of names of places from different European countries. There is no way I'm going to pronounce them right, and I'd like to apologize overarchingly to uh like various places. But generally the most famous and common ones are the one in Rome. They have the skull. That's the one we talked about at Santa Maria in Cosmedin, Rome. Madrid has the whole skeleton slash skull of Saint Valentine, supposedly at Saint Anton's Church, and this is the most well-believed one, from what I could find, that is for sure him. And which is interesting because the Roman Church, the is built upon remains from Rome that are literally from the second century. So I don't know, interesting. Um, and so that one is definitely a little more scary looking if I were to say, if you look it up. But yeah, the St. Anton's Church remains in Dublin. It's either that they have, so Dublin, Ireland, they either have the heart, or what I found also was a common description was specifically the quote, a vessel tinged with his blood. So I don't know if that means like a vessel of,
Like a, yeah.
like,
Hmm.
is it a heart? Is it something holding a piece of something? Whatever. But generally, uh, the most common are those two. So they have something of him and or his heart at Whitefriars Street Church. It is in a box behind a statue of him. In Glasgow, Glasgow, there is skeletal remains again in reliquary at Blessed John Donne's Scotus Church. Um, and then in Terni, Italy, which is said to be his hometown, if we're to believe it is the priest from Terni version of him, was there's a uh Basilica di Saint Valentino built on his grave site as it was his supposed to be his resting place. And it does date back very far. Um, in Prague, they found apparently they found a shoulder bone in a basement. So that's in Czech Republic, obviously.
Hmm.
Um,
Uh, Basement Bones, a
basement bones.
classic.
Just stumbling upon, finding them and being like, yes, these are saints. We should leave them here and ask no further questions
I'd
is
like to know how
wild
they
to me.
knew it was his shoulder.
Yeah, like what are you and like do you do you DNA cross compare these? Like that's
I don't know if you,
odd. Like I don't
isn't the
really
whole
think that
thing about saints is that they don't have like
yeah, you don't really do
children
that.
generally?
Yeah, so like I don't really know, but like I mean, you could determine if any of these belong together as one cohesive skeleton, more so than like to compare them to like other living
Mm,
people. I mean, also like in theory, I guess there's apparently numerous Saint Valentines, so maybe everyone's just going, yeah, it's Saint Valentine's bones, and they're just all assuming it's this
don't
one
tell
guy,
you
and
which
really it's just
one.
some other person.
Who
Yeah.
knows, honestly. Um, but yeah, I maybe it was in a labeled box. Who knows? In this is
Oh my
where the
God.
it's gonna get so much worse for pronouncing things. Chelmno, Poland. A skull fragment is in a reliquary at St. Mary's Assumption Church.
More skull?
Yes, more, a skull fragment specifically.
Uh,
Um, And then on the island of Lesbos in Greece, in Mytilene, which is the capital of Lesbos, um, it's somewhere there. There's supposed to be the rest of these are like something in a reliquary, which I learned is just any vessel that holds basically a saintly body in some way. Um, and then there's two in Slovakia. Um, I'm gonna try my best. Kossis. Uh, the place is called Immaculate Conception. I don't know if that is the name of the church or it's a specific site of some kind. They have a relic, is what was said. And then in Novaki, uh, at the Church of Saint Nicholas, there is a statue of Saint Valentine that almost all of it was stolen, besides like a hand and the head.
Oh,
And so that was in the 1990s, and then they like recreated and put it back in at 2000 as like a ceremony celebration thing.
That
Um,
does sound very 2000s coded. We got really amped up about restoring and replacing things in ways that were not always the most historically accurate or
yeah,
conservationist.
yeah. Um, then there's specifically skeletal something or other, uh, labeled Corpus Saint Valentine M, which is body of Saint Valentine, martyr, in the Birmingham Oratory. Um, in Gard, France, at Rocamore Church, or Rocamere. I don't know if there's a church or a region or what, but that one's kind of interesting because apparently it saved them from like a crop blight or something with like a winery and led to some kind of like kissing festival tradition thing. I could be a little off base with that, but I know it has to do with kissing. Um, so good for them. Um, Then at Vienna, in St. Stephen's Cathedral, Balzan, Malta, which I did not know Malta was a place until today. As well as finally, last but not least, unspecified remains in Missouri.
that's so Missouri. That's so Missouri. I'm so sorry. It's just like,
It is very Missouri.
Missouri, home of the unspecified remains.
I love that it's just all
Very European, and
and
then
then
Missouri.
Missouri.
Oh,
Yeah, so the main mystery here is it his head? Which one is his head? Are any of them his bones? I'm sort of like, I don't know, just I have such an interest in like I girl, I still don't understand what we's doing with these bodies, but I
Well, and then if there's like so many of them, like maybe they're all different Saint Valentine martyrs.
yeah.
yeah, I supposed to
Um,
just be the one guy's body is
yeah.
from my understanding.
Hmm.
So just an interesting mystery, specifically to the point that he is considered too mysterious to be in the martyrology text of the Roman Catholic Church.
That's kind of a flex, yeah. Like,
To be so mysterious that even they are like, that's a little much for me.
Yeah.
The
Um,
Roman Catholics are pretty big on mystery from what I have seen of their beliefs in religion and culture.
yeah, definitely. I don't know how the Eastern Orthodox Church feels exactly about him. I know that they
yeah.
celebrate his day differently, like on a different day specifically.
Oh, interesting.
Um, and other than that, the only other thing I really know is that, shoot, it was just in my brain. The thought is that also they could have chosen. the festival or the feast as to essentially replace a pagan holiday, which is also very often the case.
Ah, classic.
Um,
Very,
Classic
very common.
Catholicism.
I also have to wonder, like, how heavily any of these days are necessarily celebrated. Because I know there's stuff like
Hmm.
Passover. Like, Passover is very much so celebrated by the Jewish faith. There are a number of other kinds of Christianity that celebrate it. It technically falls under like a large amount of Catholic and Methodist and Lutheran. Like, it falls within their doctrine. That being said, I know most people don't necessarily do something for Passover unless if they're like Jewish or Seventh-day Adventist or something of that nature. And so I wonder how many of these are like, yes, this is an observed holiday by the Catholic Church, but like that doesn't mean anyone really does anything. Like it might
yeah.
just be like, yeah, that's a holiday anyways.
Some people do definitely go to the churches and like view the remains, receive blessings, things like that. Um, but generally it seems like priests that work there and people say that they're generally neglected at other times of the year. And even the one in Rome, people aren't really there to see his skull. They're there for a completely different thing, which is basically just a manhole that people stick their hand into, um, which is called something or other. Hold on.
I disliked that sentence a lot.
Yeah,
I get
it's
exactly what you're saying. It was a little unfortunate.
the mouth of truth.
Oh, yeah, I don't like that either, really.
Oh yeah, the picture's scary. You should definitely look
All
at it.
right. Hold on. I'm gonna pull it up.
Google the mouth of truth, apparently. Uh,
Oh,
my Google trying to correct it to the mouth of
I'm
Sauron.
I
Oh
also
yeah,
got that. I don't
that
love that.
that is kind of upsetting.
They
I'm
s-
not going to
they
lie.
stick their hands in the mouth
No,
Um,
for blessing, I guess.
no.
When in Rome, I suppose.
What did the Romans do?
I don't know if the Romans do that though. I think
Maybe
it.
just the Catholics.
I don't even know if the Catholics do it. I think it's just the tourists.
oh,
Yeah,
yeah, not my favorite
that's
thing.
my TED Talk on Saint Valentine.
Brilliant.
Thus concludes, and we move on to our next section.
Yeah, so our next section is going to be um not quite the same, but a little bit overlapping. This is so I will be talking about the Legend of the Headless Horseman. So I'll just jump right in. I think the sort of Legend of the Headless Horseman is pretty well known in popular culture because of the Tale of Sleepy Hollow, which has been like sort of remade into like several different movies. There's like Disney movies, but then there was also like the the one with Johnny Depp.
Yeah.
This in quite
Um,
a different forms of media, yeah.
yeah.
I the Wishbone one scared me as a kid.
Oh, I don't know if I've seen that one.
It's
Wishbone was pretty great.
it's good. I love
Um,
that episode.
well, the Headless Horseman, those are based off of The Tale of Sleepy Hollow by Washington Irving, who is an American author. And just because my degree is in English, I do have to share this tad bit of information with you. So, Washington Irving was part of the Romantic movement in American literature. The Romantic literature movement was like 18, I don't know, 18 like 30s, 40s to like 1860. Um, but it really so other people in it were like Nathaniel Hawthorne. But both of them, and Washington Irving especially, was really interested in creating like a base of American literature and like American fantasy literature specifically. So that's where you have things like The Tale of Sleepy Hollow, which um, sort of reimagines existing European folklore. And then you have like uh, another really common one is oh, now I'm blanking on it. Um, oh, Rip Van Winkle,
Hmm.
which is also um, you know, kind of a similar idea. Um, very much set in New England, um, and the Tale of Sleepy Hollow is um, so basically in the Tale of Sleepy Hollow. I guess spoilers for anybody who doesn't know about this, but in Irving's story, a man named Ichabod Crane moves to Sleepy Hollow, and then he's trying to woo a girl there who like he's kind of like a he's not like a great guy. He's just sort of trying to woo her because her family has money, pretty much. And then there's another man in the town who's also trying to woo the same girl. And at one point in the story, there's they're like telling ghost stories. One of these ghost stories is the legend of the Headless Horseman. In this legend, the Headless Horseman is a Hessian trooper who was decapitated by a cannonball during the Revolutionary War. And so it's sort of talking about the German mercenaries that fought for the British in the Revolutionary War. And then Ichabod is like on his way home and he's sort of chased out of the town by this Headless Horseman, or who he thinks is the Headless Horseman. And then there's sort of like, references that it was like probably this other guy who was just trying to prank him and get him out of town. Um, so that's the story of Sleepy Hollow. And that's how like it's been, I guess, Americanized. But also I would say it's pretty original, right? There's a lot of aspects of the story that are new, but there's a lot of things that kind of exist in specifically folklore around the like British Isles. Um, we see headless horse riding figures in Irish folklore, Scottish, Welsh folklore, which Welsh folklore has like a couple different things. There's like also a headless horsewoman, so whose horse is also headless.
Lay.
He's really working overtime.
Yeah. Then there's instances of it in German folklore. English folklore um also a has sort of tales of headless horsemen, as well as specifically mentioning the Arthurian legend of the Green Knight, which is basically like King Arthur's nephew, Gawain, is sort of challenged by the Green Knight at a dinner and is basically like um, challenged someone in King Arthur's court to come forward and strike him with an axe, warning them that he will strike them the same blow in in a year's time. And so Gawain, sort of in an effort to sort of prove himself against this like sort of mysterious figure that's just sort of come into the hall, like the Great Hall, goes and beheads this knight. The knight then retrieves his head off the floor, reminds Gawain to meet him at the Green Chapel and to fulfill his half of the other half of the deal. So Gawain is to be uh, beheaded in a
Just
year's time.
retrieve your head is so cold.
It really, that's what I was thinking too. It's like, and now the same must be done to you in a year's time. Do not forget.
hmm
That is.
That's like one heck of a calendar invite.
Yeah.
Oh.
Um, but there's also a separate sort of haunted uh haunting, I guess, in the Dartmoor. So in Dartmoor, the England ceremonial county, Devon, is also haunted, supposedly haunted by a headless rider. So there's also that. Um, but I think the Irish folklore is one that I find more interesting personally. And that is talking about the Dullahan, which is the Dark Man. It's a headless demonic fairy, usually riding a horse and then carrying his head under his arm. Um, some versions of the story claim that it's the spirit of Crom Dubh, a Celtic god worshipped in Ireland until the arrival of Christian missionaries in the 6th century. He This is kind of creepy. He wields a whip made from a human corpse's spine, and then when the Dullahan stops riding, a death occurs. The Dullahan also can call out a name, at which point the person just immediately dies. Um,
Oh.
Honestly, very fairy-like. You can definitely see
Absolutely.
how this is a demonic fairy.
Yeah, that
Um,
I mean, walked
yeah,
so Death Note could run, really.
so true, so true. In another version, it's actually a headless carriage driver. Um, and there's sort of a funny little like protection, I guess, and that's like if you're carrying a piece of gold, you like it can like ward off the or oh, you have to put the gold object like in the path of the headless horseman, so you kind of have to abandon your gold, which you know, maybe that's like a good way to make some money is
That does
scaring
feel
people into giving
very
their gold.
fairy-like as well.
Yeah, yeah.
it does.
Um, so that's the Dullahan in Irish folklore, and then Scottish folklore also has something pretty interesting. And I would say the Scottish tale is similar to like the sort of tale of the Headless Horseman that Hawthorne writes about, or not Hawthorne, sorry, that Irving writes. Um, and it's that the Headless Horseman is a man named Ewan decapitated in a clan battle at Glencairn on the Isle of Mull. The battle denied him a chance to be chieftain, and then both he and his horse are headless in the accounts of his haunting of the area. And then among the sort of Highland Scottish diaspora in like Cape Breton and Nova Scotia, seeing an image or hearing the sound of a horse or headless rider is traditionally regarded as a bad omen of an imminent death within the family. Um, there's the Welsh folklore is a little bit different. So, um, one of those is talking about a um there was sort of a haunting of a headless horseman, um, which only came to an end once the one of the hall's servants in the Bryn Hall. So one of the hall's servants discerned a message from the horseman, and then like it led the servant to the location of a buried body. And then the body was said to be that of an illegitimate child fathered by the Lord of Bryn Hall.
Hmm.
Um, so that one's kind of dark. There's also, like I said, there's Tales from Germany too, which is you know, rather similar, I would say, in just kind of similar vibes. But there's one more that I wanted to talk to you because this is an American folklore, but from it's not from New England. It is from southern Texas, and it's
Ooh.
quite different, even though it also results in a headless horseman. This is also kind of dark, so just like, you know, if you're maybe disturbed by execute like talking about like execution and stuff like that, or like uh desecrating of like remains, then
Yeah.
skip like, I don't know, 3 minutes or
It's
something.
it's spooky season, but do not get too spooky. So yeah, I'll try and put a timestamp or something, but yeah, probably a couple minutes forward. We'll do just fine.
Yeah. So in southern Texas, there's a figure known as El Muerto. And those sort of stories about El Muerto have circulated since the mid 1800s, which is after Washington Irving. Um, so there might be some kind of some inspiration there, but El Muerto is said to dangle his head from his saddle, and his horse is variably said to produce lightning from its hooves as they strike the ground. Um, so speculation about where this story came from is, um, or this particular iteration of the Headless Horseman is based on a legend in which a man was sort of captured and beheaded for stealing horses, and then they made it sort of an example of him by tying his decapitated body to a wild horse and then tied the head to a pommel of the saddle and sent the horse on its way.
Oh,
So,
that's a lot of slices.
Yeah.
yes. So that's sort of some different versions of the legends of the Headless Horseman. Um, but yeah, I think it's also sort of in a way like Irving sort of just translated and reimagined European folklore into like an American tradition, but in a lot of other ways, because this is like we're a country like built on immigrants, from like many of them from like the British Isles, um, and Ireland, and Germany. Like it's also very American to sort of like mash these up in a different way.
I was thinking the
Um,
same thing. It's like an amalgamation, which feels like a very American like telling of
yeah.
old legend and story.
Yeah. Yeah. But no, the European stories are quite old. They actually like date back to like the Middle Ages.
So yeah, a long time ago.
Yeah. Um but yeah, there was one article I read who quoted a professor at National University who specializes in like Gothic studies. Their name is Franz Potter. Um and they said that the Headless Horseman supposedly seeks revenge and a head, which he thinks was unfairly taken from him. This injustice demands that he continually search for a substitute. The horseman, like the past, still seeks answers, still seeks retribution, and can't rest. We are haunted by the past, which stalks us so that we never forget it. And that was sort of that professor's take on it, which I thought was haunting.
Yeah, I like it. It's very spooky. Um, yeah, I would definitely say you should it's a good story and you should read it. It's like
Hmm.
it's up there for me with the spooky Gothic era texts. I definitely rank it among the like Dracula and Frankenstein and Poe. It's a good one.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's yes, it's not the most well known in the world, but it's pretty widespread. Like most people have, even if they don't know the story, have bare minimum heard of the Headless Horseman and are aware that it exists
Yeah.
in
Hmm.
lore, at least.
And I think the Sleepy Hollow movie was also a big push. It's kind of like how Um, Crimson Peaks kind of brought up Fall of the House of Usher.
Yeah.
Mm, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, but it's certainly as intended an American classic. Um, so yeah, I just think I don't know. I think it's kind of fun. It's just a classic story for this time of year in general, I think so.
Yes, it's a very good
But
spooky story.
yeah, and I liked learning about sort of the different versions of that, um, and sort of thinking about how started, those sort of came to the United States.
Yeah.
I'm still a little stuck on the spine whip, not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Mm,
Like it's
Yeah.
yeah,
just
that
such
one's
a like
That one's
fascinating but
specific.
like deeply disturbing imagery.
Yeah.
hmm Yeah, not my favorite imagery. Very demon fairy-esque.
Hmm.
Um, would would be very scared if I did see a headless horseman for sure.
Oh yeah, like I honestly, it's like the dogs that's like in the sunset, that meme. Like, just be like, this is it. I don't know how to do anything about this. This must be it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I was sort of thinking, I actually was thinking there would be maybe like more to it, but it also just feels like all of the sort of folklore is so old that like every place probably has their own sort of origin story. Um, but I guess I was sort of hoping there was a little bit more than it just being like a ghost story,
Yeah.
essentially.
It kind of reminds me of the classic like stories, though, the ghost stories, the spooky stories, where like it's so good on its own. Like
Hmm
the original narrative was what holds true. It's sort of like I don't know why it made me think of it, but it made me think of like the Hook Man, you know,
Mm-hmm.
like a classic spooky story you tell in your youth or to youths to freak them out.
Classic Bloody Mary, if you will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair. All right. Well, the next topic is a little less like literal missing heads and more so people feeling like they and or others have lost their minds because of the things that they claim to have seen. Um, so starting off with our stories of a few fun little cryptids. Um, the NASA gargoyle. So, the NASA gargoyle is a cryptid that was supposedly sighted in Texas. It's said to be sometime around the mid 1980s, but we don't have like a super definitive or clear time frame for this, partially just because there's a couple different claims of seeing it, but they also aren't very well recorded or reported anywhere. Um, so the creature is said to resemble its name, as its name might suggest, a gargoyle. So it's a kind of demonic humanoid, complete with expansive wings. And then it's said that the size is pretty unknown, just because anyone who claims to have seen it hasn't had any really good scale to it to judge size off of. But it's said to be jet black in color. It originally was essentially noted in a cryptozoological book, um, and essentially a Desiree Shaw explained it to Neck Redfern, which is the author of this cryptozoological book, which the name Neck is fascinating to me. Um, I'm not sure if this is a pseudonym or if this is like a given birth name, but I did find that interesting. I thought I was losing my mind the first time I read it, and I went back and I was like, nope, that is what it says there. Um, but essentially, she had told Redfern that in in 2006 that her father, Frank, had had an encounter in 1984 with the beast. And essentially, according to Spencer, her father had been an employee at NASA at the Johnson Space Center, specifically in Houston. I know they have a couple different locations with like the Jet Propulsion Laboratory and stuff being more so in California than in Texas. But specifically at the Johnson Space Center, after finishing his shift one evening, he was crossing the parking lot going back to his car when he happened to throw a glance at one of the nearby buildings. Perched atop the building, he saw this monstrous creature, which Shaw could only describe as resembling one of the gargoyles which adorned like churches and other buildings in Europe's medieval period. And then Shaw quickly realized that the gargoyle was staring directly at him, and he had the distinct impression that it was taking great pleasure in the terror that it had instilled in him. And so after they like stared at each other for a while, the gargoyle apparently began to slowly unfurl its great wings. He said that it sounded almost like dried paper, which is a really distinct noise. So I found that to be kind of an interesting description. That act seemed to break the almost hypnotic state that Shaw had been in, and then he said that he raced back to his car without kind of looking back at it. He initially was pretty reluctant to report what he had seen to his superiors. Essentially, just he didn't want them to necessarily think that he was losing it or like think less of him or anything like that, and so he didn't want to say anything. Um, but essentially, this weighed on him so much that he just couldn't stand it anymore and eventually told one of his supervisors about what he had seen. Much to his relief, rather than being met with the ridicule that he had expected, he was essentially informed that the gargoyle had been sighted by other employees at the Johnson facility. They don't have any specifics on who those other employees were. And then it was, in fact, believed to have been behind, notably, if you're uncomfortable with kind of brief description of death, specifically of an animal. Jump forward. This will be very brief and very low on details, but just you have been forewarned. But essentially, they believed that this gargoyle creature was behind a brutal mutilation and execution of a pair of German Shepherd guard dogs.
Mm.
Um,
Oh,
which is really, really unfortunate. Presumably, regardless of this creature's responsibility or not, is definitely a difficult situation. He essentially was told that they had opened a secret file on the entity, and despite that, if there is a document like that, it's never been available anywhere to the public. And then towards like he believed that this was kind of the end of it. He told them about it, had answered some questions. They said they were aware, and so he kind of thought he was done with it. And then shortly after, he was hauled in front of NASA security people that were flown in from somewhere in Arizona, apparently, who proceeded to interrogate him intensively on his experience and make it very clear that he and his family would do well to keep the matter to themselves. Kind of think like a Men in Black kind of vibe. This may be the reason why this encounter had taken so long to come to public attention. To this day, NASA has neither confirmed nor denied the existence of the creature cited by Shaw and the supposed other employees. So that is kind of an odd one. It's a little mix of the very much so cryptid thing, obviously, but also a little bit of government conspiracy there at the end.
Yeah.
With is NASA
I love
hiding this creature?
I love a little bit of government conspiracy in my horror stories.
It is a fun little added bit of pizzazz, really.
Just
Yeah.
it always begs the question of one, how likely is it that the thing that people think is happening? And two, how likely is it that something else is happening much
Yeah.
deeper under the surface?
I mean, like you think about like, oh, the government would do that, and then you look at something like MK Ultra, and you're like, ah, no, but they
It's like,
would.
well, actually, the government's kind of insane, so.
Yeah. So that was a fascinating one. Additionally, to bring back our deep fear and one of our favorite topics, the sea, we will be talking about the giant dragonfish. So the giant dragonfish, also sometimes called untouchable bathysphere fish, is essentially a cryptid that is supposedly a deep sea fish. It has been reported only once off of Bermuda in the Atlantic Ocean. And
Of
so
course.
essentially, William Babe and another man went diving in a bathysphere, um, kind of within the Bermuda area. This was the 22nd of September in 1932. And essentially, this was classified as a giant form of a barbed dragonfish. Um, However, there's a bit of discrepancy here because he has claimed that it was about 6 feet, or like 1.8 meters long. And that is about 5 times larger than the biggest recorded dragonfish that they have on record, which is
Yeah.
a pretty sizable jump. And that's not to say that, as we've discussed, the ocean isn't vast and mysterious and doesn't contain many fish that we never see. In theory, this could be a thing because the ocean is weird like that. It seems improbable that it would be this species of fish based off of everything they know of it and its general size and things. Um, so it's said that this giant dragonfish resembled a barracuda or a barbed dragonfish, and then it's said to have a few differences. It said that its size is supposed to be quite larger, so at least 6 feet long. In addition, while most dragonfish have two lines of bioluminescent photospheres, this fish only had a single row of what he called strong lights, pale bluish, strung down the body, is essentially how it was described. Similar to other dragonfish, it had a short, pretty strong jaw that was said to be kind of undershot, so it would have had essentially an overbite. But it said that the mouth was kept wide open all the time that he saw them, and said that it had numerous fangs, which were illuminated either by mucus or indirect internal lights, which is a wild thought to me.
Yeah.
Um, it's said to have vertical fins placed well back on the body and then two long tentacles hanging down from the body, each tipped with a pair of separate luminous bodies. The upper was said to be reddish and the lower is said to be blue, that twitched and jerked along beneath the fish, one undoubtedly arising from the chin and the other from far back near the tail. And then it's said to have really large eyes in comparison to the size of its body. I would say the eye thing is pretty reasonable. That's a really common expectation for most deep sea fish, just because they struggle so much to take in enough light to like actually be able to see anything. So like kind of disproportionately big eyes isn't unheard of for like fish that actually have seeing capabilities in deeper ocean. Um, so in 1932, essentially they had been performing a number of pioneering deep sea dives in a bathysphere. A bathysphere, if you don't know, is essentially a submersible. It's very spherical in shape. I mean, kind of a solid guess based off of the name, and then it has like a window built into it. It looks a little bit like the really classic diver's helmet
Yeah.
that has the
Hmm.
circle with the like metal bars over it, and it like sits on the shoulders, and it's kind of like that, but rather than the shoulder piece, it's just more of a full sphere. um and essentially it's cable operated. So the submersible was designed by Otis Barton, which was the second man that also was diving in doing this research. However, in these record setting dives, there was a fair amount of question about what they saw, partially because while they took cameras based on the depth they were at, the visibility of things, the way the lighting worked, they couldn't really get any good photos of really anything they were seeing. So this is largely based on personal accounts and kind of visual reporting, which, if you've looked at all into firsthand account evidence of things, it's somewhat shaky way to receive information at the best of times. And granted, they are doing research, so they're like taking notes and things. Um, but it just, a lot of people struggled with the fact that they couldn't get photos or anything of that nature. And they found that when they tried to adapt things to create enough light for them to take photos, it actually caused a problem where they risked shattering the glass of their submersible, which would be
Would be
deeply dangerous.
bad.
So like
Very bad.
very valid that they chose to not take that route. I fully understand why you wouldn't do that, but that is where, despite this being like a very set research thing, there's still a lot of questions about some of the things that they saw. And so while they were doing these dives, they essentially were about 3 miles out from like the Castle Roads area in Bermuda, and they had been at a depth of 640 meters, which is about 2,100 feet. Um, and this was described in a book that they released called A Half Mile Down, which talks about some of the different things that they saw on their expedition. Um, and so this specifically comes from an excerpt of that book. Several minutes later, at 2,100 feet, I had the most exciting experience of the whole dive. Two fish went by very slowly, not more than 6 or 8 feet away, each of which was at least 6 feet in length. They were of the general shape of large barracudas, both shorter jaws, which were kept wide open all the time I watched them. A single line of strong lights, pale bluish, was strung down the body. The usual second line was quite absent. The eyes were very large, even for the great length of the fish. The undershot jaw was armed with numerous fangs, which were illuminated either by mucus or indirect internal lights. And he continues to go on to describe it relatively in detail. And then ultimately says that this is the fish I subsequently named Blasphera intacta, the untouchable bathysphere fish. And so, interestingly enough, the two people that were researching in this did not get along. I'm not sure if this started at like the beginning of their research relationship, happened somewhere partway through, or is like a thing they grew into over time, but they, by all accounts, hated each other. They did not get along well, were not huge fans of each other. Despite not getting along, though, Barton did confirm the sighting in his own book as well, The World Beneath the Sea, in 1953. And so essentially, it said that Barton was busy maintaining the bathysphere at the time that it was seen. And so he missed seeing the dragonfish personally, which is something that he deeply regretted. So he specifically said in his book that Babe had given an exclamation, a deep sea dragon at least 6 feet long crossed before the window, and a moment later returned with its mate. Until that time, scientists had doubted its presence of such a large fish in the mid depths. This was the only big dragon on record, and I had missed seeing it. And so Barton later claimed that he had indeed seen it, although he had gotten a much poorer look at it, and was only able to describe it as strange looking. Um, and it said that essentially there had been audio of this specific dive on this specific day broadcast on NBC and on BBC as well. And according to the two scientists that saw the dragonfish, they said that it passed just as NBC was signing off, and the sighting occurred shortly after they had begun to ascend from their maximum depth of 2,200 feet, where the broadcast ended. And so essentially, a lot of people are like, well, isn't that convenient that you were broadcasting and you saw it immediately after your broadcast ended in a place where you couldn't take pictures and only one of you saw it, and the other one claimed you didn't see it, and then went, well, but actually I did see it. I just didn't see it very good. There's been a lot of questions about how accurate this is. Um, a lot of people have had um, a lot of issue as well with the fact that he admitted that this was essentially just a guess. That he just thought it kind of looked a little bit like this other fish. He didn't really have enough visual or background or evidence really to explain it being part of the same family that dragonfish are in. So this was where it gets a little bit more like calling an electric eel an eel just because it's vaguely eel shaped.
Yeah.
Like
Mhm.
he doesn't really have a super strong scientific basis for this. He's like it kind of looks like that fish, but like really big. Um, and so as of 2017, um, the largest known dragonfish, like we know for sure was a dragonfish, is just 1.8 feet or 53 centimeters long. And so he has claimed in his book that essentially he thought that it might be an unknown dragonfish family.
Hmm.
And so he intended for a specific name to imply that it had essentially been untouchable. Um, and when they kind of argued about the name, they settled on Bathysphere intangibilis, essentially as a way of describing kind of the intangible nature of like kind of only seeing this transiently, having very little like super physical evidence to go off of. Um, and so, despite not having seen very much of it, they did describe it and put out what they knew of it, but he also was very clear that he didn't really want to classify it because they didn't really have lots to go off of. But despite that, they did assign taxonomic names to some of the more memorable and distinctive fish they saw. Most of these also had verification from the second diver. And with them not getting along, a lot of people felt that maybe it was a little more realistic to take these into account. Um, and so essentially, there had been a pretty solid list of different species they had seen that had never been seen before. Um, but all around, um, this fish is still usually considered a valid species and like still occurs in most taxonomical lists of fish in the
Oh,
ocean, which
interesting.
is fascinating.
Yeah, that's
So
interesting.
despite it being so really,
Controversial.
really low in evidence of existence. I mean, there's a lot of people that question it. It's still included in taxonomy, which I find fascinating.
Yeah. I mean, when you're, I guess, like, there's a couple things, right? Like, so for one, it's really dark. It could have been, I don't know. He's saying he saw it pretty clearly, but it definitely could have
You don't
been
see so clearly
something
at
else.
Yeah.
2,100 feet into
Yeah.
the ocean. I'm just saying, your visibility is not going to be great.
No.
Yeah.
It kind of,
Um,
or go ahead, finish up.
yeah, so
You're done.
like yeah, I mean it could have been like when you have sort of weird bioluminescent stuff too, maybe there's like different stuff. I do believe that there would have been really like it would have been really difficult to take pictures because of like
It's
lighting
hard
in
to take
general.
pictures above ground in certain lighting. I can't imagine in
Yeah.
the
Hmm.
oceans.
Well, and if
Yeah.
like my thoughts are like when when you're taking a picture in really, really low light, you need either like how cameras work, right, is you need
Yeah,
like a really big aperture that'll
yeah,
let in as much light as possible, or you need a very slow shutter speed that will allow for the photo to develop or the light to sort of develop
filter.
longer.
Hmm.
Um, which, if you're taking a picture of a moving creature, you wouldn't be able to have like a long shutter speed. And then if you're like I don't think like cameras were really developed well enough at this point to
Mhm.
like have the type of like camera that we do now.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I'm not sure
it's
what kind
not
of like
like
lighting they had.
and it's not like you could like stick flash or something on it, because then you would just
Yeah,
get like reflection back off the glass, and you wouldn't actually see anything. I
yeah.
don't think.
Well, and it would probably like
Freak the fish out.
Yeah.
freak the foot freak the fish out, but also like any kind of light you would see would probably just get drowned out because the flash is going to be way brighter than
Yeah.
anything. Like
And
you wouldn't have gotten a satisfying picture anyways.
Yeah. It
so,
wouldn't like show it in the way with the bioluminescence. It kind of
mhm,
like it's a very different situation, but it kind of falls in the same camp as like, excuse me, sorry, the Eastern mountain lion
yeah,
as a cryptid, where
Oh,
it's like
yeah.
a little bit
people
more
saw
real
this,
animal vibes.
yeah, where it has a little bit more of a real animal edge than say
Hmm.
like a Jersey Devil, a
Yeah,
Bigfoot.
yeah.
No
Um,
hate to the Jersey Devil,
We
but
do love the Devil as a group. However, he as a described creature sounds so much more unrealistic than this fish in the middle ocean sounds.
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. The other
and
thing too is, yeah, like I mean, we are sort of constantly discovering new species, and it was really only recently that
Mhm.
like people like saw giant squid at all. So
It's hard to say. We don't really know what's down there.
yeah,
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 I think that's
absolutely.
part of why I'm giving it more credence than I might because the ocean is
Yeah,
it there's so many things that
Ocean's
can
just
be
like
there.
that. Yeah.
so true.
I have one last little one, quite short and sweet, mostly including it because I thought it was funny and it made me think of my dad. Um, so my dad likes like wild animals and stuff quite a lot. And so I saw the name of this and I was like, I didn't think that was in the United States, and that's mostly because we don't think they are. So this again is a cryptid kind of similar to the some of the like mountain lion panther sort of things where it's like we sort of would think it would maybe not exist here, less so that it's like not real. That
Yeah,
being the American ibex. And so an ibex is essentially a kind of deer stag like sort of animal. And then they have these rather tall kind of spiraled horns, is generally how they're described. Um, and it is essentially a pretty prominent animal in various parts of the world. You will see them in a number of different places, but it's usually talked about as being in Eurasia, North Africa, and East Africa. So it's like a pretty common safari type of animal. And so they have these pretty tall horns that kind of come up and curve back, and then they have like ridges on them as they go up. And they're somewhat lighter horns for I would say, relatively sheepish kind of animal. Um, and so the claim here is essentially the ibex exists in the Americas. It's reported from Western USA in Alaska in the late 1800s. And so essentially, they believed that there was a species of ibex that had crossed the Bering Land Bridge, and essentially that in 1918 there was a report by the Daily Alaska Dispatch that alleged that local hunters encountered rare animals that matched the description of an ibex. These sightings came from the Lucia Bay region and were differentiated from local mountain goats, as the hunters reported a longer, more curved horn and finer, silkier fur. I think it's hilarious. The ultimate response here is they think that these guys were idiots and they saw bighorn sheep and just got confused. Um,
nah.
so the large consensus that has been reached here is that these guys were dumb. It was definitely some kind of bighorn sheep. Because the way they described it is just like having curved horns and like silkish fur is like it is very in line with what a bighorn sheep looks like. And notably an ibex looks distinctly different from a bighorn sheep.
Yeah.
I would
Yeah.
say that its body tends to look a little bit leaner. It's not the way that bighorn sheep fight, like their shoulders and their neck and their body just feels really bulky.
Yeah, yeah, I was gonna
Um,
say they're pretty
and
built.
so yeah, like they are very much so. And an ibex tends to be, I wouldn't call them like weak or like frail by any means, but like they're not the same kind of bulk that a bighorn sheep has. Their horns are significantly thinner, they're a different shape, they have different ridges. But I just think
The
it's
much
hilarious.
like slider sort of that
Yes,
body shape, but
yeah. And so I just had to giggle when I saw the general consensus was these men are idiots. It's a different animal
yeah,
that
I would.
notably does live in this region and we know lives there and makes sense for it to live there. Because, you know, most creatures that are found in Eurasia and multiple parts of Africa don't tend to live also in Alaska.
That's what
You
I
know,
Yeah.
was thinking too, is I was like,
It's
if they lived
actually
there, then
very
they
different.
probably wouldn't adapt super well to Alaska.
you would think they would not, especially because this would have been like obviously in a historical thing for them to have migrated there when it would have been probably colder in that
Yeah.
region. Like
Yeah,
the
like
weather would have been worse. So that is also just perplexing. That makes it even seem less likely to me.
like I totally get where you'd see things might come across the Bering Strait and evolve. But if they just
S-
look like the species that reside in Eurasia and in Africa, then they wouldn't really be adapted and evolved in the way that an animal that came over when the Bering Strait existed would.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I find it fascinating. But yeah,
Also, it's really funny to me that they were like, gosh, this creature sure looks like that animal that's seen
in
in
Africa.
like in Africa and Asia,
Yeah.
like in
Um,
Southern Asia, like
yeah. So
crazy that it's here in Alaska.
yeah. So we got three silly, goofy little cryptids where people either saw them and thought they were actively losing their minds, or people saw them and everyone went, "Bro, you're losing it. There's no way."
Yeah. I I want to hold out a little faith for the guys in story three, but I love that generally people are just like, what are you talking about? That makes zero sense.
Yeah.
Um,
I I think there's probably a pretty solid room for there being a weird fish that we don't know about in the
Yeah.
Bermuda Triangle, though.
Weird fish
I'll
we don't know
I would say
about,
so.
very valid. Claiming
I'll
that it's a
toss my hat into that
dragonfish,
ring.
the dragonfish claim I
I
struggle.
guess,
The nearest
yeah,
one
Yeah,
is
I
like
don't think it's a
1.8 feet
dragonfish.
long, and you're saying it's 6 feet long? Like, be so for real.
yeah. I don't think it's a dragonfish. It's also like they
But
also say that it's notably
yeah,
very different
yeah,
from what a
yeah.
dragonfish looks
And
like
like,
in
and
things.
again,
So
weird ocean fish, middle ocean. We don't know what it is, but it looks sort of like this guy, very a la like this one's an eel, and we're like, is it though? And they're like, well, no, but like it kind of looks like an eel, and it feels like an eel, so it's an eel.
it's like, well, is it a nail? No, but it is long. It is a long fish.
Yeah, like is it a dragonfish? Maybe not, but like it kind of has similar coloring and it has
Yeah.
glowy back things, and it's if not dragonfish, why dragonfish shaped?
Yeah. I mean, it I feel like if it wasn't being compared to a dragonfish, it would make for a better
Yeah.
holotype,
Yeah,
which is
I like
essentially
it.
like the first specimen of a species that's used to
yeah,
classify them.
yeah,
Um,
I like also that um was it Beeb and
yeah.
Beeb and Otis Barton. I like that
Yeah.
they're like, not friends, and it's like Barton, would you look at this? What is it, Beeb? Barton, it's like a dragonfish, but it's huge. That's not possible.
Yeah. You're seeing, your
Just
eyes are going
just two guys in a what I can only imagine is like a small container.
I also desire to know
2,000
if
feet
they,
down.
I just want to know if they hated each other when they were in this enclosed space 2,000 feet into the ocean, or if that part came later.
I
If
feel
it
like
was just
that's when
like
it
too much
started.
togetherness.
I feel like it had to start there. Especially
Yeah.
because, by the way, if you did not know, that is not a quick journey up
No. Well, if you
because,
go too fast, you'll get the bends, and then you'll
exactly.
have an awful time. You do not want the bends.
The bends or die.
Yeah,
Uh,
Yeah. Uh,
also that.
just for
either option's bad. Yeah, you gotta,
PSA, friendly PSA from us is ascend slowly.
yeah,
Diving, very hazardous.
it can take like I think like a day, like some journeys
Yeah.
depending on how deep they have to go because you
Wow.
just have to let that nitrogen leach out of your blood so slowly.
Yeah, you definitely
Uh,
have to come up pretty slow if you don't want to get the bends. You should be really, really careful and maybe just should not dive into caves. Cave diving is real dangerous. It's easy to get stuck with your air tank. It's easy to damage your air tank. It's easy to get lost and disoriented. It's
yeah.
all around super hazardous. Also, in case if you were wondering, I have beef with the fact that movies act like explosions and water physics doesn't exist. Because if there was an explosion in water, the water would disperse in a way in which it would compact all of the air out of your lungs and would basically cause immediate death by asphyxiation. And a lot of things act
Uh,
like you could jump into the blowing up water and be fine. You would not. Please don't ever do that.
It make it so much worse.
Yeah.
Do
The
not
physics do not physics in that. Don't try it. The
don't
science says
use
no thank you.
Minecraft creeper hack in real life.
Yeah. Um yeah.
Well, my cats are fighting or being gay, I don't know. Um,
both.
The
probably
world
both.
may never know.
I yeah, I never know.
But yeah, so we started off with missing skulls, moved to the Headless Horseman, and then finally hit people who thought they were crazy, or others thought they were crazy based on the things they may or may not have seen.
A real set of talking heads. Huh.
Yes.
Sorry.
Oh, what
Um,
a bad joke.
this really was like off the dome, that one. That wasn't meant to be a pun either, but it works. Thank you for joining us. I hopefully will have this up by Halloween. I think that would be fun. Um, any other closing thoughts on tonight? If not, that is okay.
I don't know. There's a lot of fascinating things out there. If you want to learn more about these, you can probably find more information online, but there's a little general information on them at least.
Mhm.
Yeah, lots of fun things. Read something spooky for Halloween or research your favorite cryptid or something. Um,
Mhm.
until next time, that's been us. Thank you so much for joining us in Hypothetically Speaking, where we talk about anything unexplained, unsolved, and unnatural here for you. Uh, so we will see you sometime in the future. Have a safe night and a happy Halloween, everybody.